Welcome to this video about timelines. I made a little drawing for you and I hope that I explained timelines pretty well to you. In this video I explain what happens if you want to manifest the same thing, like the same person as another person. Who would win? What would happen if you try to manifest someone and they don't want you? Is it manipulating and influencing? If you try to manifest them, what happens when we die? How is this world created? What does timeline mean? What does it mean when I say time does not exist? Answers like this. Stay tuned for this video and enjoy it. Let's talk about manifesting and timelines. We already heard creation is finished, and I wanted to make this a little bit maybe more obvious or easier to understand. So let's try a drawing, and I already apologize, I'm not the best drawer in the world. Just to keep it simple, okay, let's say we do have the biggest part of your soul. Okay, this is your soul, at least in parts, and then we do have your soul making different experiences. Let's say there is a timeline A, and I'm just using different colors right now, and you will understand in a second what I'm talking about, hopefully. So we do see different timelines. Okay, you see timeline A, B, C, D, all the way to H, and your soul, the higher part of you, is experiencing all of that, but your conscious mind is only experiencing one, let's say D, but you can constantly shift between those. Creation is finished means that every possibility already has been created, and there's an infinite number. We only have a couple here, 8 to be precise, but there is infinite possibilities. Okay, so let's say timeline A. This might be your lowest timeline. This may be where you are in deep crisis and everything you wanted does not turn out well. Timeline B is already a little bit better. Maybe you overcame the crisis, or you're a little bit less troubled. And then all the way to here where you are living your happiest life you could imagine. And then of course there's different possibilities. Let's say you apply for a job. In timeline D you don't get the job, and in E you get the job. Or maybe it's vice versa. Maybe getting that job would not be your higher timeline. But let's just say in one timeline you get the job and the other you don't. You only experience one of those possibilities. You cannot consciously experience both at the same time. We already established time is an illusion. It does not exist. All of these possibilities are already programmed, and I always explain it to my clients like a radio. There's different channels. We have channel A through H, and all of those broadcast at the same time, and with your radio you tune into one of these channels, and that's what we do with our conscious mind. We consciously tune into one of those channels. When I say consciously, that's actually not what I meant to say. It's not that we do it consciously. For the most part we do it subconsciously, but our consciousness is receiving one of those channels, one of those timelines. And which one is it? The one that matches your assumptions. So if you have assumptions like, oh, it's so hard to find a good job with the grades I've got, or the age I am, or in this area, or I'm never being chosen anyway, then even though you may have been thinking positively, your subconscious mind is more in the energy of, no, you're not getting this job, and then you make the experience of not getting it. If you had positive assumptions about it, maybe you consciously manifested it, or you just had assumptions like, oh, I always get the job I want, I'm the best anyway, then you would experience this timeline E, where you do get the job. So our experiences always depend on our assumptions about everything. Then of course there may be a timeline, let's say it's C, where you get the job but not the person you love. And then there is B, where you get the person you love but not the job you want. And then there's D, or E, maybe where you get all of it. But maybe in E, you don't get another thing, whatever you want to manifest. Maybe it's a health issue that may not be in other timelines. So you could manifest, I want the job and the health and the love, and then you will shift to timeline F, where you already have all of that. I'm just using examples. Another question I get asked often, what if people try to manifest opposing things? Like, I want to manifest a relationship, but that person does not want me. Well, this person already has been created and they also have their own timelines. And let's say you would meet in timelines C through F. Okay, those timelines are timelines where you met that person, and others, maybe here you're happy with someone else, or here you're happy with someone else, and or you never met, whatever it is. But here you met in these timelines. Then there is this timeline you met, you don't like each other. Then there may be a timeline you fell in love, but it's not reciprocated and you never get this love. Then there may be a timeline where this person loves you, but they never show you, and it takes forever until you get together. And then there's this timeline where you get together fast. And again, your subconscious mind or your inner programming, your assumptions, determine which one you get. If you're not in self-love, you cannot get here. If you still have fears of loss and abandonment, you cannot get here. That is why we have to change our programming. We have to change our assumptions. But what can happen is that this person may choose the timeline where you don't get, I think it was D, where it's not reciprocated, right? And they meet someone else and they love someone else. And if you don't work on your self-concept, then that is the experience you make as well, and you will meet in this timeline. So they, the person, when I say they, it's the person you are confronted with right now. Let's say it's timeline D. That's the one you're dealing. It's where you are right now. This person may not choose you, but that is okay, because in timeline F, there is this other version of them already waiting for you. And in that timeline, that person chose with their own conscious mind or subconscious mind, of course, out of their own free will, they chose to love you as well. And once you have cleared your assumptions, and you don't have to consciously manifest getting there. I mean, the most things we don't manifest consciously, the most things we do manifest subconsciously. But let's say you are now in the energy of love because you have cleared negative assumptions, then you will shift there and you will have your happy end with this person. What happens if someone else tries to manifest your person? Well, that might be timeline D, right? They're happy with someone else. And if you are in lack of self-love, that could manifest a third-party situation, then that is the experience you will make. But again, there is timeline F, where this person loves you and they adore you, and it's the best, happiest outcome you could imagine. And again, those are only for like 4 options. As I said, there's infinite possibilities. So there's, of course, way more than just 4 timelines. This is just an example, of course. Another thing that I find pretty fascinating, and I am going to do a separate video on that in the future, so make sure you subscribe if you don't want to miss it, and hit the bell icon, then you will learn about it, is what happens when we die. By the way, I would also ask you, if you already got some valuable information out of this content, please drop a like and a comment. That will let me know that you're interested in this kind of stuff. It will help me grow my channel. So please like, subscribe, and check out the other content. But what I was going to say, what I find extremely fascinating is an idea, a download you could say I had once. If everything is already created, there is no past lives. Everything happens in the now, in infinite numbers of realities, okay? And ultimately, you could say there's only one soul in this earth, in this entire earth. So every person you encounter is just another aspect of you in a different timeline. And maybe that timeline might be in a different year on the human level. But everything is created. Time, it doesn't exist. We just experience time because our brain would, of course, not be able to deal with everything happening at once. So in order to make this earthly experience that our souls chose to make, we need to experience time in a linear process, but it doesn't exist. But anyway, the idea I had once is, what happens if I die? Would I then just shift to the next timeline? And how did I get this question? I got this question because I was researching glitches in the matrix. And I read about some people experiencing them dying, like getting hit by a car, for example. And then all of a sudden they were still sitting in the car, and that accident did not happen, even though they vividly remember basically having the accident and paramedics coming and dying, and then in an instant it didn't happen. I believe that happens if we die in one timeline, that we shift to the next. But usually we don't remember the process of dying. I mean, ultimately, when we have reached a certain age, for example, this might be ultimately over, but I believe reincarnation is getting from higher timeline to higher timeline. Or maybe if you are in a really, really bad place, stepping one back. Fascinating to me is also that even Neville Goddard wrote about remembering dying in different timelines. He was certain that he died in some timelines and then he didn't. And I'm going to also post very soon, maybe already it is posted by the time you see this, a speech by, what was his name? Was it Philip Metz, the author? I'm going to write the entire name right now. And he also shifted timelines, but he did it consciously, not consciously because he chose to. He just all of a sudden ended up in a completely different reality. And he was briefly in a timeline where Germany won World War II. And then he shifted back, or at least he shifted into another timeline where that did not happen. And he also shifted into a timeline where he died, but then he shifted back to one where he didn't. So there are people who have made this experience. I think all of us have made this experience. Maybe you have experienced a situation where you maybe like almost got hit by a car. In another timeline you probably did. Or that one time you almost choked on something you ate, for example, and then there might be a timeline where you did not survive that. But usually we don't remember it consciously, but sometimes there may be like a glitch in the matrix and people do remember it consciously. So I believe that is what true incarnation is. It's not in a linear time to be born next in, like, I don't know, the 22nd century. It's getting from one timeline to the higher. And I believe that is also what illumination is like, the evolving of the soul. We get chances after chances after chances until we have reached a level where we have spiritual awakening and we are living our best life. And spiritual awakening does not necessarily mean talking to angels. It means living a conscious life, learning to manifest, for example, understanding I do have the control over stuff, and getting from all the way there, from the darkest to the lightest. I believe that is what incarnation actually is and what it is all about. So you don't have to worry about your person not choosing you. They don't have any free will. Of course they do have free will. In each timeline they have free will. In this timeline, with their free will, they did not choose you, and in this one they did. But they have no free will about which timeline you experience. That is all up to you. That is why Neville Goddard in Manifesting also said, there is no one to change but self. Once you change your assumptions, you shift timelines, and then you are confronted with a completely different version of them. So I hope this helped. If it helped, if you have more questions, please let me know in the comments. And don't forget to check out my other stuff. And I do wish you all the best now. Bye-bye.